Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Hayden Raven, and welcome to Flavia de Luce. So I'm back. I was sick the past couple of days, and my voice just wasn't quite there, and I felt like I couldn't do a game justice properly if I didn't have my voice. So I'm back, I'm okay, and I'm ready to get into this. Look at this. Look at that. Look at that. That is foreboding, and I love it. So let's get into this. Unless some sweetness at the bottom lie, who cares for all who think? The sweetness at the bottom of the pie. England, 1950, at Buckshaw, the crumbling country seat of the De Luce family. Very nearly 11-year-old Flavia finds a dead body in the garden. As the police descend on Buckshaw, Flavia decides to do some investigating of her own. Who had murdered the poor man in the garden, and what does it have to do with a bird on the doorstep? The answers lie in the four walls of Buckshaw. Interesting. Look for objects around the room and click on them to read the story. Okay. Click on doors to explore the other rooms of the house. Try clicking on cupboards. Some might open as well. Okay. And sometimes there is no door. You can get to the previous room by clicking back. Okay. And down at the bottom you can see how many objects are hidden in the room to find. So I wonder what kind of game this actually is. Now I know it is a text-based type deal. Hello. Okay. If a monster comes popping out at me, I'm gonna be thrown aback. Okay then. You creak away. You creak away, sir. Geisler tube. A complexly shaped mouth-blown German Geisler tube to which tar could attach electrical coils to study the way in which various gases fluorescence. Wonderful. Wonderful, wonderful. Yes, we've seen this. Okay then. So, what do I do about any of this and any of you? I'm clicking. What are you? Wonderful. What do we got? KFCN. What? An elementary study of chemistry. The book taught me within moments of the sort of things I need to know. The chemical equation describes what happens when a yellow it's been a while since I've taken chemistry. Prussiate of potash is heated with potassium to produce potassium cyanide. Wonderful. What intrigued me more than anything was finding out the way that everything, all of creation, all of it, was held together by invisible chemical bonds, and I found a strange, inexplicable comfort in knowing that somewhere, even though we couldn't see our own world, there was real stability. That is something to be interested upon. Light's microscope. On my desk by the window was a Light's microscope, whose brass still shone on the same warm luxury as it was the day I bought it by pony cart from the train at Buckshaw Halt. Its reflecting mirror could be angled to catch the first pale rays of morning sun, while for cloudy days or for use after dark, it was equipped with a paraffin microscope lamp by Davidson & Co. of London. How interesting. That's a nice touch. Very nice touch. Very period. Very period. Later, De Luce Tarquin, or Tar as he was called, in the wake of sensational mental breakdown, made shambles of what he promised to be a brilliant career in chemistry, and was sent down from Oxford in the summer of Queen Victoria's Golden Jubilee. Uncle Tar's laboratory was locked up and preserved in airless silence, down through the dusty years until my father, called my strange talents, had begun to manifest themselves, and I had been able to claim it for my very own. Wonderful, wonderful. Red lipstick. Digging into the pocket of my jumper, I pulled out a shiny golden tube. I removed its cap and couldn't help smiling as a red tip was revealed. Ophelia's lipstick, purloined from the drawer of the dressing table. The core of the lipstick came out easily enough, and I relit the spirit lamp. Only a gentle heat was required to reduce the waxy stuff to a sticky mass. If Feely only knew that lipstick was made of fish scales, I thought she might be a little less eager to slather that stuff all over her mouth. Ugh. Oh, I forget about that. I forget that this is much older and therefore things were made of different things. But then again, nowadays I don't doubt if lipstick was made of fish. Popular schoolmaster plummets to death. Okay then. In a tragic accident on Monday morning, Greenville Twinning, M.A., Oxford, 72, Latin scholar and respected housemaster at Grey Minster School near Hinley, fell to his death from the clock tower of Grey Minister's Anson House. Those familiar with the facts have described the accident as simply inexplicable. He climbed up onto the paparot, gathered his robes about him, and gave us a palm-down Roman salute. "Valet!" he shouted down to the boys. "In the quad," said Timothy Green, for the 6th form at Grey Minster, and down he came. The way his gown fluttered, he seemed just like a falling angel, and Toby Lonsdale, a rosy-cheeked lad who had near tears as he was shepherded away from his comrades before giving way a breaking down altogether nearby. Mr. Twining was recently been questioned by police in the matter of a missing postage stamp, a unique and extremely valuable variation of the penny black. "There is no connection," said Dr. Isaac Kissing, who has been headmaster at Grey Minster since 1915. "No connection whatsoever. Mr. Twining was revered, and, if I may say so, loved by all who knew him. The Hinley Chronicle has learned that police inquiries into both incidents are continuing. September 24th, 1920. Wonderful. That's so awesome. It's such a great detail. Collection of photographs. The caption is handwritten below each black and white snapshot in the chalky ink. There's no photographs of father nor are there any of us. That looks like Alice in Wonderland. Could that be? Perhaps, perchance? Lady, I don't like your mouth, the way that you do that. I'm gonna get out of here. Ooh. So many doors, which to choose from. That's where we just were. Well, let's get out of there. I gotta say, I really like the period feel, and I really love the artwork. The artwork is amazing in this. It looks almost watercolored. I do not know art. Don't judge me on the art, but it just looks hand painted, and that's all I'm gonna say because I don't know too much about art. I can't emphasize enough. Notebook. Lawrence de Luce. Jacko. The resurrection of Chang Fu. My father was not an easy man to like. He sent me away to boarding school when I was 11, and that was how I came to know Horace Bonepenny. Horace had come to us from St. Cuthbert's after a fuss at the school about some missing money, just a couple of pounds, I believe it was, although at the time it seemed a fortune. I felt sorry for him, I admit. Horace was an extraordinarily tall boy, even then, with a shock of flaming hair. His arms were so long in the school jacket, and that his wrists stuck out like bare wings beyond the cuffs. Boney, the boys called him. The resurrection of Chang Fu worked like this. I decked myself out in an oversized silk kimono I had found at the church jumble sale, a beautiful blood-red thing covered with Chinese dragons and mystical markings. I plastered my face with yellow chalk and stretched a thin elastic round my head and pulled my eyes up to the corners. Oh, well, that's just... I would call for my volunteer from an audience, a Confederate, of course, who had been rehearsed beforehand. I would bring him on stage and explain in a comic sing-song Mandarin voice that I was about to kill him and send him off to the land of the happy ancestors. I would pull a pistol out from the fold of my robe, point it at the Confederate's head, and pull the trigger. My assistant would clasp his chest, squeezing his hands to the concealed paper twist of ketchup, which would ooze out horribly between his fingers. Then he would look down at the mess of his chest and gape in disbelief. "Help me, Jacko," he would shriek. "The trick's gone wrong, I'm shot," and fall dead flat on his back. I would hold up a hand quietly to the audience. I would fetch a rolled-up sheet from the shadow and drape it over my apparently dead assistant, leaving only his upturned face invisible. "Well, sir, that's a bit... I'm not going to say any more about that." Father's stamp albums. Postage stamps, Father has explained, were printed in sheets of 240, 20 horizontal rows and 12, which was easy enough for me to remember since 20 is the atomic number of calcium and 12 is the number for magnesium. Each stamp on its sheet carried a unique two-lettered identifier beginning with AA on the upper left stamp and progressing alphabetically from the left or right to TL, which reached at the right end of the 20th or bottom row. That is insane. Are people that meticulous? This scheme, Father told us, has been implemented by the post office to prevent forgeries, although it was not perfectly clear how this was to work. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Ooh, what is in this cupboard? Perhaps perchance some drinks? Little library. Harriet had brought books back from her school days in Canada and some from an aunt in Boston. I had not read any of them, but what I knew about Harriet was probably all the books more about free spirits and renegades. My kind of book, then. Wonderful. Pernod Booth Tarkington? Interesting. Oh, it's actually making us look through the books. Merton of the Movies. And Harry Leon Wilson. Okay, wonderful. What else you got? L.M. Montgomery, Anne of Green Gables. Again, with the artwork, it's so nice and it's so detailed. Like, for example, everything in the setting is quite detailed, but these books are in contrast. They've got very little detail, but all the same, it makes them proportional, and that's wonderful. That's a great feature. The artwork is sublime in this game. I love it. The Awful Disclosures of Maria Monk. And Jane of Lantern Hill, L.M. Montgomery. So many of L.M. Montgomery. Let's see what else there is. Perhaps this hand mirror. A hand mirror whose back was embossed with an image of Flora from Botticelli's painting Primavera. I don't know art. I had never noticed this before in prints from the original, but Flora looked hugely and happily pregnant. Could thus this mirror have been a gift from her father to Harriet while she was pregnant with one of us? I thought it unlikely that it was me, a third girl, who had hardly been a gift from the gods, at least as far as father was concerned. Well, I wouldn't say your own birth is not a gift. I mean, I'm no Miss Handsome, but I will say no more about myself. Hair. Silver cigarette case with the initials HL. Is this French? That is my question, because there are, I believe it is, but I'm not entirely sure. Again, I will say no more. Philatelic supplies. I know that father derived endless pleasure from the countless and minute variations in his bits confetti, but I did not know this detail. Apart from those rare occasions, we were all of us, my sister and me, babes in the woods when it came to the postage stamps, while father puttered on, mounting bits of colored paper with more fearsome relish than some men mount the heads of stags and tigers. Ah, indeed. What time is it? Ah, so I can change the time, it would appear. It is 3:41 a.m. on the clock, but I am sure that I was another clock saying something different. What time is it really? 4:43. It doesn't open. Okay, well, let's change it again. How about that? Ah, it did open. Pendulum. And suddenly I saw one of his clocks had been stopped his precisely for 3 minutes. I felt around the back of the weighted brass, but behind it I found a penny black with a hole in its center. What was it about it that frightened father so? I looked closely to the stamp at my hand. At the bottom, below Queen Victoria's head, was written its value, 1 penny. To the left of these words was the letter B, and to the right, letter H. BH. The stamp had come from the second row on the printed sheet, 8 column to the right. Let me check those books then. Other stamp albums. Nothing? Okay then. Anything at all? Not indeed at all. Letters? What is that? Anything more? Nothing more. That animation just keeps circling around, so I am going to assume nothing, and I am going to be back. This is a wonderful adventure. I'm really enjoying myself in this. Oh my! I wonder. Just imagine the lighting. It's beautiful. It is beautiful. It is beautiful. Indeed, it is. Brass alarm clock. When I opened my eyes, an oyster-colored drawn was peeping in at the windows. The hands of my brass alarm clock stood at 3:44 on summertime. Daylight came early, and in less than a quarter of an hour, the sun should be up. At 3:44 a.m. I'm not from France, so I wouldn't know. Indeed, that doesn't make shift sink. From back ye olden times, a four-poster bed. I stretched and yawned and climbed out of bed. The gramophone had run down, frozen in mid-planaise, its needle lying dead in the grooves. For a fleeting moment I thought of winding it up again to give the household a Polish reveille. And then I remember what just happened just a few hours ago. What happened a few hours ago? Very interesting. Friday, 2nd of June, 1950, 1:07 p.m. No visible reaction as yet. Patience is a necessary ingredient of genius. From somebody. Wind the gramophone. I don't hear any music. Fairly interesting. What is over here? Why are you zooming in? No, no, get away, the harsh voice came in at my window, derailing and wrecking my train of thought. I looked down at the cucumber patch. It was Dogger. He was flattened against the garden wall, his dark, weathered fingers splayed out across the faded red bricks. I looked down at him, and there was, in the cucumber patch, his hatch was prematurely white hair. Standing at the end, his eyes upturned, seemingly sightless to the sun. I wonder what he had startled him that bad. Oh, so this is recalling to the murder, I do believe. Ah, I wonder. I wonder indeed. Oh, is that a pizza pie? What? No, that wouldn't be a pizza pie, it's a custard pie. If there was one thing upon which we all agreed, one thing that united us as a family, it was our collective loathing of Miss Mullet's custard pie. Whenever she strayed out from our favorite rhubarb or gooseberry to that dreaded custard, we generally begged off, feigning group illness, and sent her packing off home with the pie. There is a piece missing. So somebody does not hate that pie, and somebody tells me that that somebody is a murderer. Daphne had furnished the castle of Otranto, and was now well into Nicholas Nickleby. Listen to this, Daphne said, reading aloud. Fanny Squeers is writing a letter. My pie is one mask of bruises, both blue and green. Likewise, 2 forms are steepled in his gore. We were compelled to have him carried down into the kitchen where he now lays. Me and my brother were the victims of his fury, since which we have suffered very much, which leads us to the harrowing belief that we have received some injury in our insides, especially as no marks of violence are visible externally. I am screaming out loud all the time I write. It sounded to me like a classic case of a cyanide poisoning, but I don't feel much like insight with these 2 bores. Oh, okay, the Castle of Otranto. So that's just more textbook reading, but let's see if we can actually find what this game is about. You see, she shares, oh my goodness, I cannot speak. She shares a really good interest in chemistry, which is ironic because for the period of this time, it's no little known fact that women's education was not exactly... It's no little known fact that women's education of this time period was not influenced around the whole society. Now, some talents such as playing the piano or harpsichord or certain talents about the house were encouraged, but not specifically education or reading. That's why something along the lines of Pride and Prejudice was so unique, especially the character Jane. But I will say no more about that and continue with this novel and not that one. Large Aga Cooker, Miss Mullet, who is as short and grey and as round as a millstone, and who, I'm quite sure, thought of herself as a character in a poem by A.A. Milton, was in a kitchen formulating one of her pus-like custard pies as usual. She was struggling with a large Aga Cooker and dominated by the small, cramped kitchen. She always fled at the slightest whiff of unpleasantness, and once, when Father raised his voice, she had rolled herself up in the carpet and refused to come out until her husband Alf was sent for her. Wow, okay then. What is this? What are you? What are you? 2 bishops, Lucy? Under the shed. Something about the shed. Interesting, very interesting. Back door. Door that leads outside to the garden patch. It was locked, but there should be a key nearby. There should be a key nearby. Well, where in diddly-dumdly would that be? Ah, right there. Open the door. I will go with the first one. The first does not fit. Okay then, well I guess I'll try the second one. The door opens. Wonderful, wonderful. I'm gonna go back. What is that? Dead bird. And there's the stamp again. Father pointed a trembling forefinger at the little carcass. Dispose of that thing, Miss Mullet, he said in a strangled voice that sounded like someone else's, the voice of a stranger. It was a bird, a jack snipe, and it was dead. Something impaled upon it shifted in the morning breeze, a tiny scrap of paper. What frightened Father so? It couldn't have been the stamp. Father loved stamps more dearly than he loved his offspring. The only thing he ever loved more than his pretty bits of paper was Harriet. Ah, how wonderful. Interesting, because we keep seeing this stamp everywhere. Clap. Okay then. Who is taking these photos? That is quite interesting, and I do believe there was something back here. Behind everything. What do I do about this? What do I do about any of this? Congrats, you came this far. You have been roaming around the house, finding clues. Answer this simple question to continue. What is another word for farewell? Good evening? This is sadly wrong. Remember, no caps, but don't worry. Just try again and go back to the house to find clues. Okay, well, how can I go back? How can I go back, indeed? Okay. I think I found a way back. And I'm back inside. Just give me a minute to figure this out. So, I'm back at the cucumber patch, but it appears that we're going to need to find another word for farewell, or au revoir, perhaps. But I have no idea. Having pointed to the body, I watched in fascination as Sergeant Woomer unpacked and mounted his camera on a woolen tripod, his fingers fat as sausages, making surprisingly gentle microscopic adjustments to the little silver controls. A moment later, he waded into the greenery and was kneeling beside the corpse. Anyone we know? Shouldn't seem so, Inspector Hewitt said. Empty pockets, no identification. Reason to believe, though, that he's recently come from Norway. Norway? Surely that was a deduction worthy of the great Holmes himself. Indeed. Hand, shed, body. Interesting. Very interesting. Let me look at the hand, I guess. Is it holding anything? Is this picture holding anything for us? None in particular. Ah. Yes. Wonderful. There's the camera flash, but I don't see anything of consequence. And here's the body. It looks like his brain has been either bludgeoned or blown off. Interesting. Very interesting, but nothing of actual use, I'm afraid. Dead body. I was walking towards the wheelbarrow when I tripped suddenly and fell forwards onto my hands and knees. Bugger! I suddenly already looking around to make sure that no one had heard me. I was now plastered with wet black loam. Twisting around to see what tripped me up, I spotted it at once. Something white protruding from the cucumbers. It was a hand attached to an arm that snaked off into the cucumber patch. The body in the cucumbers sucked in a shuddering breath and then, bubbling at the nose, exhaled into a single word, slowly and a little sadly, directly into my face. Bail, it said. Now nothing but the strands of the red hair was left behind as the police took the body away. Interesting. Very interesting. Cucumber patch. As I stepped outside, I saw the silver light of dawn had transformed the garden into a magic glade, its shadows darkened by the thin band of day beyond the walls. Sparkling dew lay upon everything, and I should not have been at all surprised if a unicorn had stepped from behind the rose bush and tried to put its head in my lap. Okay then, that is an observation, but one of fantasy. Overturned wheelbarrow. Who would forget the sight of Dogger in the garden the night before? Even though the glass of the window I saw the man clearly. A great simple hulk of a helpless man just standing here, hair and tools in disarray. Wheelbarrow overturned, and the look on his face as if... I'm not sure. Potting shed. Dogger was father's man, his factotum. It was whispered by Miss Mullet at night. Dogger was father's man, his factotum. It was whispered by Miss Mullet, I might as well admit, that Dogger had survived 2 years in a Japanese prisoner of war camp, followed by 13 more months of torture, starvation, malnutrition, and forced labor on death railway between Thailand and Burma, where it was thought he had been forced to eat rats. Arthur Wellesley, Dogger, to give him his full patronymic, as it was called in the better days. Dogger had come to us at first as father's valet, but then the full vicissitudes of his position, his word not mine, bore down upon his shoulders. He found it more I'm not even going to try. To become butler, then chauffeur, then Buckshaw's general handyman, then chauffeur again for a while. In recent months, he had rocked gently down like a falling autumn leaf before coming to the rest of his present post of gardener. Well, wonderful, but I wonder indeed about everything that's going on about here. I really have no idea where to continue as far as what farewell otherwise could be. But outside of that, let me do some more reading, and perhaps I'll find something in this house and see if I can't figure out this game, and if we can, then I'm afraid we must bid farewell ourselves. But until then, let's figure this out. The Oxford English Dictionary. Perhaps farewell will be in here. Vollen, vacancy, vacal, vaddle, vaddy, veil. Ah, veil! This is our farewell. Okay. Origin Latin. Valerie, to be well. So, we apparently have come across the proper word, which is veil. I would have never guessed that. I would have guessed something like au revoir. But, let us find out what happens when we type in our synonym for farewell in the end, what I assume at the very least. Is this the farewell? So, veil. Sadly, this is wrong. Oh, no caps. Okay, then. Veil. Bishop's Lacey, to be continued. Ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of our time. This has been a wonderful adventure into Flavia de Luce. Now, I believe that's a name and not an estate, but who knows with my common sense. This was a wonderful game. I love the artwork. The only criticism I could ever have about a text-based adventure with wonderful artwork, but no sound in the background to keep my mind muddling through and busy. Now, it had plenty of good sound effects. That clock really kept my mind busy, and perhaps the flickering lights, that was wonderful. Maybe some static noise would have been better, but all the same, this is a wonderful game. I love this game, and it's beautiful. I love games like these, so I'm going to leave the link down in the description for you guys so that you can play it for yourself, and perhaps you'll find more than what I have. But this is a very picturesque and real human experience. I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. But ladies and gentlemen, for now I must bid you a good evening and a good night. I'll see you.